Hey, it's your buddy Tyler from Off Meta, and I wanted to let you know how excited we all were for the latest Magic the Gathering set, The Murders at Karlov Manor, set in Ravnica. You'll be collecting evidence and gathering clues and nabbing suspects and all that fun stuff, and you know how we love a good murder mystery here at Off Meta. So with that in mind, we're going to be playing commander decks around the Murders at Karlov Manor. We're going to be doing draft. I've saved up all my gems and all my coins so I can do as many drafts in Magic Arena as possible. And I went down to the local game store and got me 3 of the pre-release boxes so that you could see what's inside the set, what kind of mechanics are going on. So check out this video and see what is inside of those mysterious little boxes, those little packages. If you like what you see here, you can always see more at youtube.com/offmetaplays, and you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/offmetaplays. We'd love your support all the time in all the mysterious activities that we do. But otherwise, stay tuned and enjoy the video below. Like, comment, tell me what I got wrong. You'll love it. All right, so let's open up our first pre-release box. One of the cool things we have here is we have these suspected tokens. Suspected is a new mechanic in which a creature kind of gets better, but also kind of gets worse. So they get menace, but they also get that they cannot block. And on the other side of this is a case solved. So a case will be a special enchantment that allows you to, gives you an immediate effect when it comes in the battlefield. And then after a solve condition is met, it then gives you another cool effect afterwards. That could be ongoing or something else. The other things on here, tokens, stuff like that. So cool things. Let's open up our box here. First thing, we've got a spinner for our life totals. We used to call these D20s back in my day. But apparently this is not a functional dice. I don't know. I don't ask questions. So the limited, the pre-release rare is our Lamplight Phoenix. It's holographic, so it's going to shine in your eyes. No problems. Lamplight Phoenix. It's flying. It's 3/3. It's big boy. When it dies, you can exile it and collect evidence. Collect evidence means to exile cards from your graveyard that equal the mana value of the number shown. So collect evidence 4. If you exile, cards that have that value, you could exceed it. But if you get up to that value, you can, in this case, return Lamplight Phoenix to the battlefield tapped. So an immortal. Voja, Jaws of the Conclave. This looks cool. Vigilance, Trample, Ward 3. Whew. Whenever Voja, Jaws of the Conclave attacks, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. Draw a card for each wolf you control. Wow. That seems like a very fun commander card. We were playing some commander today, Kyle and Travis and I. And that seems like that would be a fun basis for a commander deck where you have elves and wolves. Elves and wolves. All right, so that's what came with it. So let's go ahead and open up our first pack. I think these are play boosters, so they should have a certain type of what's the word I'm looking for? They should have a certain type of spread on what's in here, how many rares, things like that. Inside source. 2 and a white. This is great with detectives because it creates a detective, blue and white detective token for when it comes into play. And then for 3 mana, it can make a detective get +2/+0 and gain vigilance. Pretty neat. I like it. I'm excited about the detective stuff. So, Dog Walker. This is one of the disguise creatures. So you can play this for its mana value of a red and a white, or you can put it face down, like so, for 3 mana, and that is a 2/2 Ward 2 creature. And then you can flip it up for its disguise cost, which is the special hybrid mana. So it could be a white and a red. It could be 2 red, 2 white, whatever you're into. When you turn it face up, it creates 2 tapped 1/1 dog tokens. So you get 3 for the price of 1 when you do it that way. Not so shabby. Trick, +2/+0, and gains haste. It also creates a 2/2 white and blue detective token if that creature died. So you can trade up and get you a little monster in return. Extract a confession. This is an edict effect, so when you cast it, they have to sacrifice a creature. If you collected evidence, once again, that's the exiling of cards from your graveyard up to that mana value, then you all of a sudden, can have them sacrifice their greatest power amongst the creatures they control. Topiary Panther, it's got land cycling, so you can pay 1 and a green and send it packing from your hand to the graveyard, and in return, it will bring you back a land of your choosing that has basic in it. So there's some dual lands that have basic land types as well. And then you can trample if you cast it. So it's a 6/5 trampler. Big boy. Great for collect evidence decks. So if you play these in tandems, you're playing black-green. I put this in my graveyard with a basic land cycling. When I cast this, I'm obviously able to collect evidence 6 because of its mana value of 6. So neat. Shady Informant. When it dies, it deals 2 damage to any target. So it's a 4/2 for 5, which is not the greatest expense. And then Disguise for you can undisguise it. It's interesting that they call it Disguise because you're actually revealing it more so than disguising it. But it is 2 and a hybrid blue-red. One of the things that's important to note is that, you think this deals 2 damage to any target. That's great against all these 2/2 disguise things, but they all have Ward 2, so you'd have to pay an extra 2 mana to make that happen. Fanatical Strength, +3/+3, and Trample, great in your limited decks. So Concealed Weapon, look how big that Concealed Weapon is. How does he hide it? Equipped creature gets +3/+0. It's got a disguise, so you could play this as a creature and then flip it up. And when it's turned faced up, it attaches to a creature automatically. So pretty neat. Otherwise, you can equip it. So you could do a fun thing where you block with it, and then before damage is dealt, you go, I'm going to pay the disguise cost, and then I'm going to equip it to another creature who's also blocking, and then that takes something out, and then preserves it as well, saves the damage. Private Eye, man, I'm excited to have that. I love the detectives. So it's Detective Lord. It gives everybody +1/+1. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked. So a lot of ways to draw extra cards in a turn in this set specifically because of the clues. Chalk outline. Whenever one or more creatures leave your graveyard, create a white and blue detective token, then investigate. So when you do those collect evidence, you're going to get a creature, you're going to get clue tokens. So pretty good pairing with some of the other collect evidence triggers. Pretty neat. Here's our case that we were talking about earlier. Case of the Ransacked Lab. Instant and sorcery spells all cost 1 less to cast. If I cast 4 or more of those types of spells in a turn, it solves, right? So this is just the base effect. And then if I solve it, which is the condition here, when I do that, whenever I cast an instant or sorcery spell, I get to draw a card. So if you can make that happen, you're in good shape. So this is, that's my rare for this pack, it looks like. Case of the Stash Skeleton, another rare. When this case enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it. So suspect is that it's got menace and that it cannot block. Right, so now you created a 2/1 for 2 mana that has menace, can't block. You solve it if you control no suspected skeletons. So if that gives them very little incentive to ever block that one. Once it's solved, if I pay 1 and a black, sacrifice the case, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So you get a tutor. Wow. That is a pretty neat little card. On the job, creatures you control get +2/+1. It's got the little highlight, showcase art on it. Very pretty. But it's just a overrun effect type of thing. And you get to investigate. If you haven't won, you get a clue. And that's a mountain, if you're not familiar. So we have a little puzzle piece art series. Let's keep a hold of these over here. Look at that Cool. Goblin friend. All right, let's open up our second pack here. See what we got going on. Let's sort some things out real quick. There's our highlight card here. This came with, that's the rare that came on in the inset. Another rare. Or promo, I guess. Let's see. Rare case. Rare case. Uncommon. Uncommon. Make sure they didn't shortchange us any of our carrots. And all commons. Great. Common, uncommon, rares. How about that? All right, pack number 2. Ooh, look at that elephant. Look at that elephant. I love him. I really do like the Loxodons. It's not just because I'm an Alabama fan, though it doesn't hurt. Crime Stopper Sprite. I can collect evidence like we talked about earlier. It's flying. It's a 2/2 in the air. It's a detective. And when it enters the battlefield, we tap a target creature. If evidence was collected, put a stun counter on it. So another good reason to collect evidence. Innocent bystander. When it is dealt 3 or more damage, investigate. All right, when it's dealt 3 or more damage. Okay. That's, I don't know how good that is. 2/1, and you just want to block somebody that has 3 power or greater so you can get a clue. All right, Alley Assailant. I listened or heard that this card was fashioned after Joe Chill, the guy that killed Batman's parents, Bruce Wayne's parents. So he is a 3-mana 3/3. If you cast him that way, he comes into play tapped. It's a vampire rogue too. Oh, that's nice. I just play my vampire deck. Anyway, but it's 4 and 2 black, pretty expensive to disguise, to reveal and flip him up. When Alley Assailant is turned face up, target opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. So if you can wait it out, you get a little drain effect. So kind of cool. Nervous Gardener. 1 to undisguise it or disguise it. When Nervous Gardener is turned face up, search your library for a land card. With that basic land type, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. So good ramp. Very cool. Public Thoroughfare enters the battlefield tap. When Public Thoroughfare enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you tap an untapped artifact or land you control. So you got to tap 2 things. It comes into play tapped, and then you can tap a clue. That counts. And then it's adds 1 mana of any color. Benthic Criminologist. We can put that in the Merfolk deck. Whenever Benthic Criminologist enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, draw a card. There were very few artifacts in that deck, but that's pretty cool. Thinking Cap. This is great for the detectives. It's an equipment that's easier to put on detectives. I hope I get enough stuff for the detectives. This is a neat little bit of flavor that I don't know how good the cards are. So all of these clue equipments, they are both clues that you can equip to a creature. In this case, it gives a +2/+0. And whenever equipped creature dies, each opponent loses a life. But you can also use them as clues. They are all based off the clues or the weapons from the Clue board game. So the pipe, Colonel Mustard. I wonder. I need to do some digging and see if there is like a Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard analog for each of the different archetypes. 10 Street Gossip. It's 2 and a red and a green. It's got Vigilance 4/4, and when you tap it, it adds red and green. Spend this mana only to cast face down spells. So that's when you put them in disguise or turn them face up. Right. So you have this concealed weapon. You can attack with 10 Street Gossip, tap, red, green, and another mana, and it flips this guy up. Boom. Right. That kind of thing. Pretty fun. Pretty fun in that red-green disguise deck. Slimy Dual Leech. 3 and a black. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control with power 2 or less gets +1/+0, and gains Death Touch. All right. The Meek will be powerful in the hands of the Slimy Dual Leech and deadly. Underground Mortuary. This is a dual, one of the dual lands. It's swamp and a forest. Counts for black or green. And when it enters the battlefield, it does so tapped. When it does enter the battlefield, you get to surveil one. So that's a rare. Pretty neat. Ooh, gonna put this with our Voja, because it's another Voja. So I thought that I told you I'm a Voja soldier. Tolsimir, Midnight's Light, lifelink, 5 for 2, a green and 2 white. For a 3/2 lifelinker, when it enters the battlefield, you create Voja Finstalker, a legendary 5/5 green and white wolf creature token with trample. Yep. Alrighty. So you got the wolf to draw you some cards, and an elf that gets a +1/+1 for the counters. Whenever a wolf you control attacks, if Tolsimir attack this combat, target creature and opponent controls block to that wolf. This combat is able. I'm saying, man, wolves and elves. That's what I'm talking about. This is a nice little combo here. We've already got 2 packs in. Agency Coroner, 4 and a black for a 3/6. It can play 2 and a black and sacrifice another creature. Draw a card. If the sacrificed creature was suspected, draw 2 cards instead. So you would want to suspect your own creatures, get some card advantage out of that. I don't know if it's worth it, but I guess we'll have to find out. So that's a common. Put that in the wrong slot because it's crappy, but hey. But it's pretty. And here is our blue land. So I'm seeing some wolves and elves. I'm hoping we get some more wolves and elves, but I bet that's about it. Those are the only 2 wolves and elves, but I'm excited to have both of those. Pack number 3 from our little box of goodies here. So let's see here. Cool. Do some of that later. Toxin Analysis. Target creature gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn, and then Investigate. That's such a good combo. Death Touch and Lifelink. This is a flash enchantment, so basically an instant that sticks around. When it enters the battlefield, untap enchanted creature. It gains hexproof until end of turn. If it's suspected, it's no longer suspected, and it gets +2/+2 and cannot become suspected. A lot of utility on this card. So obviously you can cast it to protect a creature you really care about. You can knock off suspected if you want it to block all of a sudden. So this creature was suspected, it attacked, and now you want it to block something coming in, so you can unsuspect it, and it untaps as a result of it, and then it gets +2/+2. So not too shabby. Hazda Vigilante. It's 4 and a white for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with power 2 or less. So this kind of goes along with this Slimy Dual Leech, right? So this is the black-white archetype, which is have a bunch of little bitties. So this is a way to pay that off. So you've had a bunch of 2-power creatures. Of course, this can also go on any old disguised creature as well. So Cold Case Cracker, 3 and a blue for a flyer. That's 3/3. When it dies, you investigate. A little death trigger. Person of Interest, red and 3 for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, suspected, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So you get 4 power for 4 mana on 2 bodies. I'm excited about the draft, the limited space, and usually those cards do really well. So keep an eye out for that. Fairy Snoop, flying with a disguise. When it's turned face up, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one into your hand and the other into your graveyard. chase is on. It's the highlight or spotlight card for the pack. 1 red, 2 colorless. Target creature gains +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn, and then you investigate. That's a really expensive combat trick, even if it comes with a clue. Magnetic Snuffler. It's 5 mana for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Attach the Magnetic Snuffler. So, for instance, you played Lead Pipe, you used it as a clue, you put Magnetic Snuffler out there, it comes, dunk. Now all of a sudden you got a 7 or a 6/4, and then if you ever sacrifice that Lead Pipe again, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So, a little bit specific, but, not uncool. Green Belt Radical, 3 and a green for a 4/4, or you can cast it for disguise cost. If you do, when you flip it up for 5 and 2 green, it's turn face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Each creature you control, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. So really, this is a great payoff for a go wide type of thing, where you spread tokens out amongst all the creatures on your board, and they're trampling. So a good finisher. It's also a citizen, which was big in New Capenna. Sanctuary Wall. It's a wall. It has Defender. It's 1 and a white for a 0/4, and when you pay 2 and a white and tap it, it taps a target creature. You may put a stun counter on it. If you do, put a stun counter on Sanctuary Wall. So you get a discount if you pay right there, because stun basically taps it for 2 turns. So pretty neat. Curious Cadaver. When you sacrifice a clue, return Curious Cadaver from your graveyard to your hand. So you can just keep rebounding this. It fights stuff off. You're bringing it back for, 2 and a clue. And a clue. Pyrotechnic Performer, 1 and a red, 3/2. It's got a disguise cost of 1 red. Whenever Pyrotechnic Performer or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Holy crap. That is phenomenal in those disguise decks. You want to keep that one around for that stuff. Whew. Another Concealed Weapon. It's our holographic card this time around. And we got a Forest of Feelings. No art card that time to keep up our art. I thought maybe these were going to make like a little, a whole picture, but it's not exactly what happened. Then we got a Merfolk token. I don't know why we need a Merfolk token. I feel like that Benthic Investigator did that. All right. This is pack number 4. A Defenestrated Phantom. It kind of stinks, but it's got it's a fun word. It's a fun name. That's a ghost. It's 4/3. It flies. It's got a disguise cost. You can do that instead. That's about it. Riftburst Hellion. Ooh, that's the big one. Yeah, so disguise cost is 6. It's a 6/7 with reach. So you can really shock some people with that. Speaking of shocking people, here's a shock. Huzzah. Unscrupulous Agent. When an unscrupulous agent enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. Kind of like that snail from Lost Caverns. They went this away. I like the names. Search your library for a basic land card, put it in the battlefield tap, then shuffle, and then investigate. It's that's a bit of cost for ramp and a clue. You're basically paying 2 mana for the clue, because a lot of those find a land cards are, I guess it's, maybe you're only paying 1 for the clue. I don't know. Gravestone Strider. Add 1 mana of any color. It's a filter. Activate only once each turn. Exile Gravestone Strider from the graveyard. Exile target card from a graveyard. It's a little bit of graveyard hate. Auspicious Arrival. 1 and a white. Target creature gets the +2/+2 until end of turn, and then you investigate. I like that one. You get a clue. Surveillance Monitor. I really like this one. I think I see some cool stuff with Surveillance Monitor. When it enters the battlefield, you may collect evidence 4. Whenever you collect evidence, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter token. So you pair that up with some of the other collect evidence cards we've seen, and then all of a sudden you're making flyers in the air as well. Pretty fun. Presumed dead, 1 and a black until end of turn. Target creature gets that +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies. It returns to the battlefield under its owner control and suspect it. So now from in on out, it's going to have Menace, can't block. You can pair that up with this Alibi, right? So you save it, that you cast the Alibi. Keep that creature around forever. Scene of the Crime, it's an artifact land. It's a clue. Scene of the Crime enters the battlefield tapped. You can add a colorless. You can tap an untapped creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. So it turns anything into a mana dork. And then 2, sacrifice Scene of the Crime, you draw a card. You know why? Because it's a clue. A clue. Ooh, we got a split card. We got Hustle and Bustle. Target creature attacks or blocks this turn if able for 1 mana of blue or red. And then for 6 mana, Bustle is creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. You may turn a creature you control face up. So free, undisguised. So you put that with that, what we have here, the Hellion. So for 6 mana, you turn this bad boy face up for free, and you get +2/+2 to everything you got, and it gains trample. So 8/9. Ugh. Not too bad. It's fun. I like the split cards. War Leader's Call, 1 red and a white. We haven't gotten much of the Boros stuff in our pack so far, but we're only 4 in. Creatures you control get +1/+1 whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control. War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. All right, so that's a combination of the impact trimmers and then an anthem effect. Right, so everything gets +1/+1, and then you pop them. I'm down. Rubble Belt Maverick, 1 green. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 2. So great with that surveillance monitor, right? Exile Rubble Belt Maverick from your graveyard. Well, not really with the surveillance monitor. You think you have more to do with surveil. Anyway, but it does put things in your graveyard for collect evidence. Exile Rubble Belt Maverick from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. I guess that could work. No, it says specifically collect evidence, so it doesn't matter about it leaving. We got a mountain and a mysterious creature. That's what you'd put in place on any of the disguise creatures you put on top of them. A mysterious creature. All right. So we didn't get any more elves or wolves. That's sad. We'll have to go get our wolves and elves elsewhere, I imagine. Can't believe they didn't do elves and wolves typal for this set. Come on. Alrighty. Suspicious Detonation. It costs 3 less if you've sacrificed an artifact this turn. So it's normally 5 mana. It becomes, what did I say? 2 mana. And this spell can't be countered. That's great for all those ward abilities. It deals 4 damage to target creature. So if you sacrifice a clue, which already cost you 2, or, you sacrifice through other means. Blue, red's supposed to have a lot of sacrifice artifact synergy. So we'll see how that works out. But that's a nice removal spell if you can make it happen. And it goes right through all of the ward 2s on the disguise creatures. Macabre Reconstruction. This costs 2 less if a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere. Return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. All right. Escape Tunnel. So this is the strictly better Evolving Wilds. When you sacrifice Escape Tunnel, search your library for a basic lane card, put it in the battlefield tap, then shuffle. And then it also can be sacrifice Escape Tunnel. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. Make your move, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. A lot going on there. Got another Benthic Criminologist. Starting to see the repeats now. We haven't had many repeats until now. Pick your poison. Choose 1. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. Each opponent sacrifices an enchantment. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. Okay. That's probably, I guess it's better in Commander. Though you never can get things to line up super well. Where it's like, oh, I want everybody to sacrifice their best enchantment. Anyway, on the job, we saw that one over, the overrun effect. And we also had it already in the spotlight. So Case File Auditor. Case File Auditor. 2 and a white for 1/4 when it enters the battlefield, and whenever you solve a case, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. So even though it's specifically for cases, you could find this War Leader's Call, for instance, or any of the cases we've seen so far. And you can put all those cases in there if you so choose, because you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast case spells with Case File Auditor out there. So neat. You might want some other ways to do it too, but, you know, hey, whatever. Leering Onlooker, flying, 1/3 for 2 mana. For 2 and 2 black. Exile Leering Onlooker from your graveyard and create 2 1/1 black bat creatures with flying. Okay. Pretty neat. If it's already dead, I guess you get a couple bats. No More Lies. 1 white and blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. No More Lies. It's a food equipment. Karlov Haunch for 1 white. It gets equip creature +2/+0. You can sacrifice it to gain life because it's a food. When it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a white. If you do, create some dogs. That's nice. So you could just cast it, you know, get your 3 life, and then get a couple dogs, and then get it back with that sniffler thing, that magnetic snuffler. Though there's probably not any metal in Karlov Haunch. Here's a case to go along with our Case File Auditor. Case of the Uneaten Feast. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. That's just default for 1 white mana. If you've gained 5 or more life this turn, you solve it. When you solve, sacrifice this case, creature cards in your graveyard gain. You may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. So all of a sudden, you completed this case because you've been gaining all this life, and you can bring back the greatest hits of your graveyard. Hope you're ready for that. I guess you can wait to sacrifice it until once you've solved it, you can always sacrifice it, I guess. I don't know. Extract a Confession, but in holograph. There's another mountain. And a skeleton. All right. I think we peaked early for this set, or for our earliest packs. But maybe we'll have a real humdinger late. I wasn't super over the moon about that case as a rare. But let's see if we get something else out of here. All right. Ooh. Got some more cool art. All right. Goblin Maskmaker for 1 red. When it attacks, face down spells you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast. All right. Get some disguises out there early because it's got the masks. It's got to attack to do it. Basilica Stalker. It's a vampire detective for 6 mana. When it deals combat damage to a player, you gain a life and surveil 1. It's got a disguise cost for a discount of 1 mana, so you can get it out a little bit earlier. So it deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life, and it surveils 1. And it's flying. Kind of like Weak Sauce Lifelink. Bite Down on Crime. It's a fight spell for 3 and a green. As an additional cost, you can collect Evidence 6. If you do so, the spell costs 2 less to cast. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It deals damage. Oh, it's not a fight spell. It's a bite spell. That's why it says bite in it. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Boom. Inside Source. We saw that one earlier. I like it. More detectives. More detectives. Reasonable Doubt for 1 and a blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. Suspect up to 1 target creature. Nice. All right. Not a wolf or an elf, but it's white and green, so I can go with that. As Crowd Control Warden enters the battlefield or his turn face up, put X +1/+1 counters on it. where X is the number of other creatures you control. So this goes really well with that other centaur we saw from earlier, that when it turns face up, it pumps everything. So you want a large board state for both of them. Is that a rare? Well, maybe it was a common. The green belt radical? Maybe it was a common. No. Where did you go, my centaur friend? Too many cards. Let's see. Let's try one more time. Maybe it's an uncommon. There it goes. So this crowd control warden and the green belt radical, both centaurs, both benefit from a large board state. So yeah, centaur tribal, centaur typal, I guess we're gonna call it. It's got 3 white green hybrid to undisguise it. So it's got to turn face up to get all that action. So it could be pretty big if you had some creatures out there. Could be pretty big. Murder! Kills him dead for 1 and 2 black. Destroy target creature. It doesn't add up. 3 and 2 black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Suspected. Hey, nice. I wonder how this stacks up against Defossilize. I think the Menace is pretty good, but Defossilize would let it explore twice. It's pretty neat too. You can't, because it's an instant. I mean, you can do it on their turn, but it's not like you can just pull out a surprise blocker. Scene of the crime. We saw that earlier. Artifact land. Pretty neat. Culvert Ambusher, 3 and 2 green for a 4/5. When it enters the battlefield or is turned face up, target creature blocks this turn if able. Okay. Eat you, fool. So you can either do it to where Culvert Ambusher's doing the eating, or you can do it as an effect when they're cast. So some interesting stuff going on there. Soul Innervation. Got that soul, honey. 3 and a black. Flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets -4/-4. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So you can get a lot of value off of your collecting of evidence and the like. Nice. And it's a removal spell. Conspiracy Unraveler. It's a mythic for 5 and 2 blue. It's a Sphinx. 6/6 flyer. You may collect evidence 10 rather than pay this mana cost for spells that you cast. I wonder how many times you'll have 10 casting cost worth of stuff in your graveyard, but cool. Griffknot Tracker. 3/2 for 3 and a white. It's a flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. All right. So that was our first sealed pre-release box. So we got some neat stuff. I think the things, like I said, I'm most excited about are stuff like the Voja, the Tulsimir, which comes with another Voja. I think that would be pretty fun. If you put together a lot more disguise stuff, this Pyrotechnic Performer could be pretty cool. You could put something together with the case file auditor and all these cases we have. So we got some neat stuff to kick us off with it. Stick around. We're going to open up another one of these pre-release boxes. All right. Now we got one completely clean. That last one, I got really excited, and I went ahead and pulled this out. So now you get to see that action. Isn't that cool? Aren't you excited? I know you are. See if there's any other secrets inside of this box here. Don't see any. All right. See what cool prizes await. I should unpeel all these and see if there's like a mystery going on. All right. Etrata, deadly fugitive for 1, a blue, and a black. You get a death touch, 1/4. Face down creatures you control have 2 black blue. Turn this creature face up. If you can't exile it, then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Turn this creature face up. If you can't exile it, then you may cast that exiled card without paying its mana cost. Okay. So you can undisguise any creature for that cost. Whenever an assassin you control deals combat damage to an opponent, cloak the top card of that player's library. Ooh, okay. So if you can do some stuff with assassins, so this Pyrotechnic Performer is an assassin. Seems like they're not the same color, but hey, look, pretty neat. Melic Reforged Researcher. When Melic Reforged Researcher's power and toughness are each equal to twice the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Okay. The first instance or sorcery spell you cast each turn costs 3 less. Get your big boys out. Man. All right. That could be fun in a little spells deck. Not too shabby. I mean, my brain is more geared towards Voja, but that's pretty neat. All right, pack number 1. Here we go. Nervous Gardener, we saw that. Public Thoroughfare, we saw that. Infinite Criminologist, Goblin Mask Maker, Basilica Stalker, Bite Down on Crime. All right, well, these are all ones we've checked out already. Dramatic Accusation for 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, tap Enchanted Creature. Enchanted Creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap phase. And for 2 blue, you can shuffle Enchanted Creature back into its owner's library. This reminds me a lot of Cooped Up, which works a little bit differently. That creature can't attack or, block or any of that kind of stuff. And its activated abilities, I don't think activate. I think that's what Cooped Up does. And then you can pay 2 and a white to exile it, but this is put it back in the deck. But still, good removal from a blue card. Case of the Burning Mask. Here's another case for the Case Auditor. When this case enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to target creature. So, a little Lightning Bolt or Lightning Strike. 3 or more sources you control dealt damage this turn. All right, so 3 creatures attack, 2 creatures and another direct damage spell, any of that kind of stuff. Sacrifice the case, exile the top 3 cards of your library, choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. Okay, so you get a 3 mana, deal 3, and then you get a play a card from exile. All right. Curious Inquiry for a blue. You can enchant a creature. It gets +1/+1. And whenever that creature deals combat damage, you investigate. Lightning Helix. It's going to go well with that War Leader's command deal. What is it called? Why can't I find you? Well, War Leader's Call. Yep. Lightning Helix. It's a red and a white. It deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. So Healing Salve on top of a Lightning Bolt. Instant. Perfect. In every way. All right. Let's see. Vengeful Tracker. 1 in a red. For a 2/2, whenever an opponent sacrifices an artifact, Vengeful Tracker deals 2 damage to them. This is pretty powerful in a set where people are cracking clues. So some decks is going to punish really, really hard. Ill-Timed Explosion for 2, a blue and a red. Draw 2 cards. Then you may discard 2 cards. When you do, Ill-Timed Explosion deals X damage to each creature, where X is the greatest mana value among cards discarded this way. So you could really just figure out what creatures you want left on the board, if you're discarding the right stuff. Nice. And then you can go collect that evidence. Because it doesn't exile them. So, boom! And then it's next thing up is I collect the evidence to do whatever. Cornered Crook. 4 and a red for a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice an artifact like a clue. When you do, Corner Crook deals 3 damage. So it gets a free lightning bolt on a 5/4. Well, not free because it's got to sacrifice an artifact. But that's one of the artifact sacrifice payoffs for another card we saw earlier. So what was that bad boy? I don't remember now. I have to go back and dig deep. We'll find it. We'll do something fun. That's really the only one that hasn't been, though, like, just spinning a clue normally. So, but you can sacrifice an artifact and get some cool synergies going. The Market Watch Phantom is 1 and a white for a 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters battlefield under your control, it gains flying. It's a jumpy boy. Behind the Mask, with an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect that evidence 6. Until end of turn, target creature or artifact becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/3. If evidence was collected as base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn instead. So you can use this to weaken a creature of your opponents if you collect evidence, or you can just make one of your creatures big. So like Relic Roar with an additional mode. Another Suspicious Detonation. Oh, yeah, that's the one. So if I sacrifice, I can get a lot of damage in if the Corner Crook sacrifices an artifact, and then I cast Suspicious Detonation. So you're getting 7 points of damage, direct damage for 7 mana. And a body. Don't get it twisted. Rot Farm Mortipede, 3 and a black for a 3/4. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, Rot Farm Mortipede gets +1/+0 and gains Menace and Lifelink until end of turn. So all those collecting evidence, you make a Mortipede go wild. Escape Tunnel. Fairy Snoop. Fanatical Strength. Case of the Shattered Pack for 2 colorless. When it enters the battlefield, search your library card for a basic land card and reveal it. Put it in your hand, then shuffle. If there are 5 colors among permanents you control, you solve it. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains flying, double strike, and vigilance until end of turn. Wow. If you can get 5 different colors among permanents you control. If you can get 5 different colors among permanents you control, you got some heavy hitters that you can send out after people. Repulsive Mutation for X blue-green. You can put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, then counter up to 1 target spell, and its controller pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So even if you already have a big creature, you can just use that power for the counter spell, or you can make a creature bigger too. Pretty neat. Absolving Lamassu, 4 and a white for a 4/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, all suspected creatures are no longer suspected. You lose your menace, and now you can block. When it dies, you gain 3 life and suspect up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. I don't know if I want to suspect their creature. It'd be great if you could suspect your own. But Rune Brand Juggler. When it enters the battlefield, suspect up to 1 target creature you control, like the Rune Brand Juggler does. And then it pays 3 black and a red. Sacrifice a suspected creature. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. 2 mana 2/2 with a little bit of upside. All right. Atrata Deadly Fugitive. We saw this in the pack that came with it, but we got another copy. 2 of them. They're mythic. This is our Scene of the Crime, but a hologram. And that's a forest. A clue. I started with 0 Atratas, and now I have 2. So things are looking up, Ma. All right. Nervous Gardener, seen that. Due Diligence. 2 and a white, enchant a creature, enters the battlefield, target creature you control other than enchant a creature gets +2/+2 and gains vigilance. Enchant a creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance. So it gives an immediate effect to one creature and a permanent effect to another. Crime Stopper Sprite, Goblin Mask Maker, Alley Assailant. All right, we're starting to see things again. Gravestone Strider, Auspicious Arrival. All right, here, eliminate the impossible. 1 in a blue. Investigate. Creatures your opponents control get -2, -0 until end of turn. If any of them are suspected, they're no longer suspected. All right. So you hit them all, weaken them all. Pretty cool. Night Drinker Morai. 3 and a black for a flyer. That's 4/2. When it enters the battlefield, you lose 3 life. All right. You can cast it for its, you can disguise it initially. So pay 3 mana for a 2/2 with Ward 2, and then you pay 2 black to flip it up, and it's a 4/2. So Vampire, too. Lumbering Laundry, 5 mana for a 4/5 for 2. Until end of turn, you may look at any face-down creatures you don't control anytime. And disguise 5. So it can come in disguised as a pile of laundry, and then pop up, 4/5, and then you can look at other people's dirty laundry too. Hedge Maze. It's the blue-green dual land. Ooh. Comes into play tapped. And then it also surveils one. Drag the Canal. It's an instant that is 1 blue and 1 black. It creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. If a creature dies this turn, you gain 2 life, surveil 2, and then investigate. So you could cast this as people are attacking. You have a 2/2 blocker. If it dies, or if anything dies, it doesn't have to be your creature. You could eat up a 1/1 or something. You gain 2 life, surveil 2, and then investigate. So a lot going on there. A lot of good things. That's a person of interest, but a holograph. And then a swamp. I'm telling you. More wolves. More elves that go with wolves. Hang out with wolves. Oh, got an art card. Yeah. Let's see. Granite Witness. 2 white, blue. It's a 3/2 flying vigilance. You can undisguise it or disguise it for a blue, white. I like one of the great things about a lot of these common disguise creatures is that you can put it in a blue deck, you can put it in a white deck, you can obviously put it in a blue-white deck, right? Because it's a hybrid cost. When it's turned face up, you may tap or untap target creature. Pretty nifty. Red Herring. 1 in a red. It's got haste. When it attacks each combat. If able, you can sacrifice Red Herring to draw a card. Because it's a clue. It's a fish. That's fun. That's very funny. Unscrupulous Agent. 1 in a black for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. Oh, yeah, we saw that one earlier. I don't know why I'm reading it again. Airtight Alibi. We saw that one. I forgot about it. Museum Night Watch. It's 3 and a white for a 3/2. When it dies, create a 2/2 white-blue detective creature token. And you can disguise it for 1 and a white. Another of those crowd control wardens. Unauthorized Exit for 1 and a blue. Return target non-permanent to its owner hand. So you can bounce it and then surveil 1. Bolrak Clan Basher. 4, 2 red for a 3/2. It's double strike. It's trampoly. And you can disguise it for 3. You get a discount. 3 and 2 red. 3/2 double strike and trample. Trample and double strike's great. Crawl Whipcracker. Black, green. For 3/2 with reach, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target token an opponent controls. So it could be one of those detectives. It could be a clue, anything like that. A lot of detective tokens running around. And it's an assassin too, which goes great with a Trotta if you're into that. though it's different color. So I don't know how you're going to make the assassin stuff work. A Gorgon Detective, the Persuasive Interrogators, 4 and 2 black for a 5/6. When it enters the battlefield, investigate. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. So you could create a lot of clues, and I mean, basically, if you crack 5 clues with this on the battlefield, they're dead. But there's not really a lot of ways to get poison going in this set. All right, here's a card I'm very excited to have, and I love this format, this kind of dossier format. Gleaming Gear Drake, 1 blue, 1 red for a 1/1 flyer. Not impressive, you say. When it enters the battlefield, you investigate, comes with a clue. Cool. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, like a clue, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. And you could sacrifice things to that crooked, what is that? That cornered crook. Krinko's Buzz Crusher, 2 red for a 4/4 flying trample. When it enters the battlefield, for each player, destroy up to 1 non-basic land that player controls. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it in the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Pretty neat. 4/4 flying trample. Destroys a land. Unyielding Gatekeeper, 1 and a white for 3/2. It's got Disguise for 1 and a white. When Unyielding Gatekeeper's turn face up, exile another target non-land permanent. If you controlled it, return it to the battlefield tapped. So you can blink something. Otherwise, its controller creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. Or you can turn their, their biggest, meanest, nastiest, most powerful, gonna beat you thing into a 2/2 detective. Which you think you can kill with that Whipcracker Assassin, right? Which I put in the wrong stack. Oops. I like the Unyielding Gatekeeper. That's pretty neat. Save it for a rainy day, baby. In a swamp or that's another forest. Bite Down on Crime, Inside Source, Reasonable Doubt, Felonious Rage. Repeat Offender's a new one. If 2 and a black, if Repeat Offender is suspected, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Otherwise, suspect it. So you can make it a suspect and then keep putting counters on it. It's a 2 mana 2/1 otherwise. Sanitation Automaton for 2, colorless, a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 1. Demand Answers for 1 and a red. There's an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact, or discard a card. So you can sacrifice a clue and then draw 2 cards. I like that one. Burden of Proof. I don't know if we looked at this one. Enchanted creature gets ++2/+2 as long as it's a detective you control. Otherwise, it has base power and toughness 1/1 and can't block. It can't block detectives. Okay. So it's flash. So I can make a detective, bump it up. So one of those 2/2 tokens is now 4/4. And if it's not a detective, I can make it a 1/1 and then eat it. All right. So I'm liking what I can make for detectives. Case of the Shattered Pact, we saw that. Repulsive Mutation, we saw that. Resolving Lamassu, uh-oh, don't like it. Connecting the Dots for 1 and a red. Whenever a creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. All right. For 1 and a red, discard your hand, sacrifice Connecting the Dots, put all cards exiled with Connecting the Dots into their owner's hand. Whenever a creature you control attacks. So if I have 3 creatures, I attack a couple times, I have, I don't know, I could have 6 to 9 cards under here. I discard my hand, and then I have a whole slew of cards underneath it. Wow. I think that's pretty tidy. Seeing the Crime, seen a few of those. And an Island, seen 1 or 2 of those as well. Fact number 6 from this box. Coming a long way. Mysterious creature. Fight down a crime, public thoroughfare, reasonable doubt. All right, here we got a new one. Offender at large. It's got a disguise cost of 4 and a red, but it's also 4 and a red at base. It's 5/4. When offender at large enters the battlefield or is turned face up to 1 target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. All right. I don't know if that's the scale, if I'm looking at the art right, but it looks like the at-large part is it is a giant. Oh, it is. It's a giant rogue. Okay. That's fun. Fun pun. Basilica Stalker, we've seen that. Undercover Crocodile for 4, a blue and a green. It's a 5/5. When it deals combat damage to a player, investigate. And it's got a disguise cost. If you don't want to pay that big cost, you get a discount of 1. And you could put it in a blue or a green deck. Or a blue-green deck. Makeshift Binding, 2 and a white for an enchantment that enters the battlefield. Exile target creature an opponent controls until Makeshift Binding leaves the battlefield. You gain 2 life. All right. Call a Surprise Witness, 1 and a white. Return target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a flying counter on it. It's a spirit in addition to its other types. Another one of those corner crooks. Goes good with all those artifacts we want to sacrifice. Undercity Eliminator, 3 black, 3/3 Gorgon Assassin, so that goes well with Atrata. When Undercity Eliminator enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls. Wow. Man, that's tidy. Okay. I kind of like that one. World Souls Rage, X, red-green. When World Souls Rage deals X damage to any target, put up to X land cards from your hand and or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. All right. So, yeah. Intrude on the Mind. Ooh, 3 blue. It's a mythic. It's an instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Oh, man. Yeah, I love the sound of this one. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Create a 0/0 colorless flying artifact Thopter token with flying. Then put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card you put into your graveyard this way. So if you make 2 piles, you could go, one pile is 0, the other one is 5, and you either are asking them, do you want me to make a 5/5 Thopter at instant speed, or do you want to give me 5 cards for 5 mana? Pretty wicked. It's a story spotlight art too, so that is a good find. Rakish Scoundrel. It's 2 black-green with Death Touch. It's a 3/3 with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield or is turned face up, target creature gains indestructible. And you can pay the disguise cost. You pay a little bit more to do it to something like when it's doing its attacking. But obviously, if it's attacking and it's an indestructible Death Toucher, that's pretty nasty. It's an elf. I asked for elves, I got one. But it's an elfish rogue. You'd figure it would be an assassin. Maybe go in that Atrata deck. All right. So far, let's take a look at what we think maybe our best stuff. I really like Intrude on the Mind. Pretty nice. Oh, that's actually a common, huh? It's just foil. All right. I don't quite understand World Souls Rage yet, so I'll have to take some time. Connect the Dots, I think, was pretty neat. Unyielding, but not as good as Intrude on the Mind, I don't think. Unyielding Gatekeeper is pretty neat. Kinko's Buzz Crusher, neat. I like Drag the Canal. Hedgemate, obviously the lands are fine. All right, we got 2 Atratas. We got an Ill-Timed Explosion. I think Ill-Timed Explosion was good. And that goes well with Melik. So Melik, Intrude on the Mind, Ill-Timed Explosion, pretty good. Atrata goes well with that Drag the Canal. I like the Pyrotechnic Performer. And of course, I still think for right now, my Tolsimir and my Voja, those get my vote for best cards. This Sphinx is not super playable, but Tolsimir and Voja currently where I'm sitting as my favorites from what we've drawn so far. All right, one more pre-release box to go for the murders at Karlov Manor. So our pre-release card is going to be a land, commercial district. This is the red-green one. Okay. And Melik reforged. So, all right. 2 Meliks, 2 Etratas. We're going to move through these a little bit faster since we've seen so many of the commons up to this point. But if we see something cool, we will definitely stop to get a look. They went this way. Seasoned Consultant. Okay. 1 and a white for a 1/3. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, Seasoned Consultant gets +2/+0. So it's got this, what they call the battalion effect. It's not doesn't have battalion, but, you know, now it's 3/3 for 2 mana. Granite Witness, the Red Herring, Toxin Analysis, Undercover Crocodile, Fanatical Strength, but in a spotlight. Here's another one of the clue equipments. It's a knife. All right. Buried in the Garden, 2 white-green for an enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent you don't control. So anything, just boom, when leaves the battlefield. Until Buried in the Garden leaves the battlefield. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. So you can really use this to do some fixing. It also gets rid of something that's giving you problems. Living Conundrum, 4 and a blue for a 2/5. It's hexproof. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, skip that draw instead. As long as there are no cards in your library, Living Conundrum has base power and toughness 10/10. It has flying and vigilance. Man, that's fun. So deck out, and you get to do some cool stuff. I think that would be one. This is a fun card to build some decks around. Can you get all your cards out of the decks? Mill yourself. You can use that with the collect evidence stuff, and then have a 10/10 flying vigilance creature where you can't deck out as long as it's around, and it's hexproof already. So figure that out. Doorkeeper Thrall, 1 and a white for a 1/2 flash flyer. Artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Okay. So all that stuff we saw. All right. Yeah. Okay. A bit of denial. None shall pass. A Bubble Smuggler, 1 and a blue for a disguise, 5 and a blue. It's 2/1 normally. As its turn face up, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So basically, you can pay 2 for a 2/1, or you can pay 6 for, what is that, a 6/5? Yeah, 6/5. Okay. Mentor of the Meek. This must be from the list because it's not from here. 2 and a white for a human soldier. It's 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. So this actually would fit with the black-white archetype of 2 power or less, or any of the disguise creatures that you wanted. So, not out of place. More art. Yay. Rubble Belt Braggart. 4 and a red for a 5/5 when it attacks. If it's not suspected, you may suspect it. All right. Nice. Cerebral Confiscation. 2 and a black. You choose one. Target opponent discards 2 cards, or target opponent reveals their hands. You can choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So 2 modes. Get rid of cards out of people's hands. I like it. I like the choices. Vitugazi Inspector. 1 and a green. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence. It's got reach 6. Or sorry, you may collect evidence 6. It's got reach. When Vitugazi Inspector enters the battlefield, if evidence was collected, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and you gain 2 life. All right, neat. Gadget Technician. 2, a blue, and a red. It has a disguise of a blue and a red. It's 3/2 when Gadget Technician enters the battlefield or is turned face up. Either way. So you either pay 4 mana for a 3/2 with a 1/1 colorless Thopter, or you flip it up and you get a 3/2 with the Thopter as well. I think either way, that's a winner. Hotshot Investigator. 5 in a blue. It's a 4/4. When Hotshot Investigator enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner's hands. If you controlled it, investigate. So it's blink, or it's a... Well, no, it's not a blink. It's a bounce either way. Undercover Crocodile. The chase is on. 2 in a red. For an instant, target creature gets +3/+0. Oh, we already looked at that. I got excited by the name. We've seen it. Eliminate the Impossible was cool. I like that. Night Drinker Morai. Lumbering Laundry. A Killer Among Us. 4 and a green. When a Killer Among Us enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 human, a 1/1 merfolk, and a 1/1 goblin. Then secretly choose human, merfolk, or goblin. Sacrifice a Killer Among Us. Reveal the chosen creature type. If target attacking creature token is the character's chosen type, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gains Death Touch until end of turn. Nice. That's really fun. I don't know how good it is, but it's fun. This one I know is good. Wojek Investigator. 2 and a white for Flying Vigilance 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. So in Commander, this is even more effective. You could be making 3 clues. Nice. I like you. And then there's Inside Source. So we're going to see if we can end up making a cool detective deck out of these cards. Or if I'm better off just doing something around our elves and wolf friends. All right. All right, here's a different one. Exit Specialist. 1 and a blue for a 2/1. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. It has a disguise cost. You can flip it up. If it's turned face up, return another target creature to its owner's hand. Glen Weaver. It's a 3/3 reach for 7, 2 green, and 5 colorless. When Glint Weaver enters the battlefield, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures. Then you gain life to the creature equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. All right. That's pretty fun. Reckless Detective. You're a loose cannon, devil. 1 and a red for an 0/3. Whenever Reckless Detective attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. If you do, draw a card, and Reckless Detective gets +2/+0. So you could really work this out with a lot of the sacrifice stuff we've seen for artifacts. It's basically, it'll be a 2/3 for a while. Draw your card off a clue. Holy mackerel! Oh man! 3 red and a white for an Angel Aurelia, the law above. A 4/4 flying vigilance haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia, the law above, deals 3 damage to each of your opponents. You gain 3 life. Ugh. Oh my goodness. Look at these angels coming out. She's nice. Felonious Rage. If we can figure out the fixing, I think a red, white, green with some of our best rares there would be pretty sharp out of these packs. Of course, I mean, you know, it's 18 sealed packs. We should be able to make something pretty good. All right, here we go. Gearbane Orangutan, 2 and a red for a 2/2 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, you can destroy up to 1 target artifact, or you can sacrifice an artifact and make it a 4/4. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. I like the Gearbane Orangutan. Seen the Macabre Construction. Vengeful Creeper, 4 and a green for a 5/5. It's got disguise. When Vengeful Creeper is turned face up, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. We've seen the Phantom. If I die today, the market watch Phantom. All right. Behind the Mask, Rakish Scoundrel, Auspicious Arrival. Here's a new one. Insidious Roots, a black and a green for an enchantment. When creature tokens you control, all creature tokens you control have add 1 mana of any color. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 0/1 plant creature token, then put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. So you can collect evidence and get some plant creatures going, and they would be able to tap for any color mana, so you can ramp up. You could also ramp with other tokens. It doesn't just have to be these. As long as they're creature tokens. Another Undercity Eliminator. I like that one. Call a Surprise Witness. We saw that, but this is the Spotlight. Corner Crook. All right. Hide in Plain Sight. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Cloak 2 of them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So I can take 2 cards, and I can just make them 2/2s for 4 mana. If they have disguise, I can flip them back up. So, or I can do the thing, I mean, of course, it's a totally different color, but you can use that Atrata ability too as well. Okay. I think most cases it'll just be a 4 mana for 2/2s. And you get to look at your library. But if they have disguise, then I guess you get some other stuff. Makeshift Binding, but hollow. All right. They should really stage these packs where it's like, oh, you open from front to back and your things are just going to get progressively cooler. But I guess that would take away some of the thrill. You would just start at the back, right? You would start from the end of the novel if you knew that. An Ooze. Got a Plains. All right. Light Down on Crime, Inside Source, Reasonable Doubt, Felonious Rage, Repeat Offender. Tunnel Tipster. Here's one that can go in our deck maybe that we want to build. It's 1 and a green at the beginning of your end step. If a face-down creature entered the battlefield under your control this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Tunnel Tipster. It adds a green mana. Nice. So good with specifically the disguise decks and a little bit of ramping. Mida. All right, here's a new one. Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. When this case enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature that was dealt damage this turn. Okay. To solve, 3 or more creatures were put into the graveyard from anywhere this turn. When it's solved, you get a 4/4 Gorgon with Death Touch and Lifelink, in addition to its other. So it becomes a 4/4 Gorgon creature with Death Touch and Lifelink. Wow, I like that. Agency Outfitter, 4 and 2 blue for a flying 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your graveyard, hand, or library for a card named Magnifying Glass. Don't have that. And then I do have the Thinking Cap, and put them on the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. All right. Okay. Perimeter Enforcer. 1 and a white for 1/1 flying lifelink. Whenever another detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, Perimeter Enforcer gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I like that for detectives. The red-white Elegant Parlor. Our dual land. Homicide Investigator. 1 and a black for a detective. That's 2/2. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. I said only got a once a turn trigger. And that's Reasonable Doubt. All right. We're nearing the end. Oh my gosh. One more pack. I think this one's going to have the absolute wickedest. I'm putting my money on it right now. It's going to have the best of the best right here. You're going to say, holy mackerels. Holy red herrings. Oh, got a detective token. And it's giving us a mountain. I'm seeing some good signs here. Alley Assailant. Nervous Gardener. So this will go good in that deck. Public Thoroughfare. That might even work to help us deal with our mana. Benthic Criminologist, or we just put some of those, was it the Scene the Crimes? Goblin Massmaker. All right, here we go. Out Cold. This spell can't be countered. That's important with all those Ward 2 creatures. 3 and a blue. Tap up to 2 target creatures and put a stun counter on each of them, and then you investigate. Fanatical Strength. Curious Inquiry. Seen these. Torch the Witness. It deals twice X damage to target creature. If excess damage was dealt to that creature this way, investigate. Whew. All right. Karlov. Watchdog. 3 and a white for 3/2 with Vigilance. Permanents your opponent's control can't be turned face up during your turn. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. All right. I kind of like that Karlov Watchdog better than most people do, I think. Another Hustle and Bustle. Here we go. 1 Treacherous Greed. Black, white, and a colorless for an instant that as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature that dealt damage this turn. You draw 3 cards. Each opponent loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. All right. So you attack. If you get in for damage, you sacrifice it. Then you get 3 cards, and you do a drain life as well. And our last card, like I told you, it's going to be the best pack, Perimeter Enforcer. So as you can tell, we've got all of we've unloaded a lot of cards. We hope you enjoyed this pre-release content from the murders at Karlov Manor. If you did so, please like this video and leave a comment down below letting us know that you'd like to see more of this type of thing. You can support us at patreon.com/offmetaplays, and you can watch our existing content at youtube.com/offmetaplays, which consists of all manner of social deduction, hidden movement, anything that is social and mystery related is in our bailiwick. But until we meet again, think off meta.